My boyfriend, who I live with, works as a teacher in a town about 15 minutes away by train. He gets home more or less at the same time every day, give or take an hour or so. I, on the other hand, work from home. In the late January of this year, we'd gotten in a pretty big fight about something stupid. I can't even remember what it was about now, but it was one of those fights where we didn't speak to each other, text, call, or anything the whole next day. So this afternoon, I was lying in bed and getting work done. It was a Tuesday, and I was pretty sure his last class finished at 1 p.m. on Tuesdays, meaning he would surely be home at 2:30. But around 1 o'clock p.m., I heard the front door open and shut. I thought, I guess he's home an hour early today. It was normal for him to skip his last class every once in a while, so I didn't really think anything of it. In fact, I was mostly mentally preparing for the awkward, post-fight, "Hey, how's it going?" conversation. So I continued to lie in bed and do my work and wait for him to come in and change his clothes. The bedroom door was closed and I had earplugs sort of half in, as I usually do when I'm working, but I could hear the heavy footsteps of him walking around the apartment as he always does. If we hadn't been mid-fight and I wasn't so preoccupied with the awkwardness of it all, I might have noticed it was strange how slow the footsteps were, or how long he spent walking around the living room. But I was caught up in the dramatics of the fight and didn't think about it. I was just lying there, waiting for him to finally come in. Finally, the bedroom door slowly opens a few inches. I turned my head towards the door and prepared to give him a sort of awkward, "We've been fighting for 24 hours, huh?" smile. But the door didn't open more than a few inches. I looked and saw that it was a woman's hand with red nail polish on the doorknob. Whoever was there slowly closed the door as they had opened it without entering the room. I jumped out of bed, ripping out my earplugs, and sort of froze there for a few seconds while thinking rapidly. My first thought was that was not my boyfriend, and then I thought, could that have been his mom, his sister, the landlady? For some reason, I concluded that surely it was his mom or sister. So I opened the bedroom door and walked into the living room. There wasn't anything there, but the room smelled heavily of women's perfume. Then I came to my senses and realized his mom and sister don't have keys and have never come over before. The landlady has never entered without permission. This was a stranger. I ran back into the bedroom and shut the door, now shaking heavily. There is a balcony connected to the bedroom, so despite the cold January rain, I stood on the balcony and called my boyfriend. He picked up and I asked him if his mom or sister might come over unannounced. He told me no and to not move, that he's calling the police. The police were there in minutes and searched the whole apartment. Of course, nobody was there by this point. It was weird though. Nothing was missing from the apartment, despite us keeping a jar full of money right in the entrance. Nothing was even touched. In fact, it seemed like the intruder came straight into the bedroom, saw my legs on the bed, panicked, and left. Plus, you can't open that big wooden front door without a key. For a few days, my boyfriend and I were convinced it was just the landlady, being nosy. I began to feel better. Nevertheless, we demanded that the landlady change our locks. When she came to change them with her husband, she made a discovery. There was a square area by the keyhole that had been scratched away with something. The landlady said surely someone used tools to break into the apartment. Then, a day or two later, my boyfriend told me, "I have to tell you something, but don't freak out." He told me that the orange kitchen scissors were missing. I tore the apartment apart, looking for those scissors. It's been 6 months and they're gone. So the whole thing is just creepy and weird. A stranger breaks into a nice apartment, but doesn't touch anything or take anything valuable. Not even the money jar sitting right in the entrance. Takes scissors from the kitchen, goes straight to the bedroom, sees someone in bed, and immediately leaves. I never got to meet the person who opened the door that day. I hope I never do. I am a female. I was around 16 years old when this happened to me. It was just me and my dad at our house, and since he was a businessman that traveled frequently, I was left home alone quite often. First of all, I'm going to try to do my best to describe to you the layout of my house, so you can better understand my situation. My house is pretty small, since it is just my father, my dog, and I living in it. There is a long hallway, full of full-sized windows, separating my dad's room and mine. Our dog loved to look out the windows, so we always kept them open enough for her to look out. I am the last room at the end of this hallway. In between the two rooms is my bathroom and a spare room. All the rest is irrelevant. Let's get to the story. It was about 11 o'clock p.m. when the worst night of my life began. My dad was passed out in bed after a long day, and I was mindlessly dancing around my house, getting ready for bed. I hopped in my shower, not knowing what was coming ahead. And of course, like a cringe-worthy horror movie, my dog starts aggressively barking up a storm. With my excessive knowledge of how it turns out for the girl in the horror movies, I go out and explore. I head to my room to throw on some clothes while my dog is still shitting a brick. Months before, I'm not sure how I managed to break my door handle, but you don't have to twist the knob to open it. All it needs is a small push. Scared shitless, I barely managed to put a shirt on when my dog opened the door. I looked to see her enter my room, while in the midst of barking, and that's when I saw it. There's only one window that has vision of the opening of my room, and in the corner of it, I saw a face. A face so seemingly sinister that I can still see it years after. It was dark, so I took a second to comprehend what I just saw, but when I finally realized it, I screamed. My dad owns a lot of guns, so when he heard me scream bloody murder, he ran out with a pistol. He asked me what happened, and I could barely mutter what I saw. He ran outside to see if the man with the terrifying face was still near. We stood out there for a minute, scanning the area. A man was casually strolling towards us from the opposite direction, about 100 yards away. I knew it was him. I got that feeling in my stomach that you can't mistake. It was like he was trying to cover up that he was there by coming from a different direction. That bastard didn't fool me. You better stay the fuck away from my daughter. You see what I have here? Holding his gun up, I could have sworn my dad was going to shoot. The man brushed off these threats easily. "Fuck off, old man," he said. And my dad and I went back inside. He went back to bed like nothing happened, but I couldn't sleep a wink. I kept thinking he was going to come back and hurt me because of the threats to him. We called the cops the next morning, and they came out and scoped out our house. He looked around the house, trying to calm me down, but I was still pretty shaken up. He went to the front yard, and that's when he saw it. In front of the windows, in the long hallway, there were small bushes. Nothing much. The cop, from outside, went to the window that had the view of my room, and there it was. If he tried to tell me the news without making me more upset, he failed. There were indents in the dirt right in front of the window. That meant he knew he needed to look for you, and it seems as if he had come here more than once because of the broken pieces of bush. Turns out, he was the nephew of my old neighbor and had been staying there for months. Never arrested, never got in trouble, probably barely got a slap on the wrists, but at least he was now gone. How long had he been watching me? I'll never know. All I know is that I'll keep my door shut, and I never keep the blinds open.